What do you do when the answers just don't come? I was having a conversation with my son the other day, and well, my son, he's in California. A little bit background on him. He is married to a lovely woman, and they live in California, and he is currently finishing up his time in the police academy and also his time in the National Guard. So I think he has 2 more years in the National Guard, and I think he has, December is when I think he finishes the police academy, and he starts his career as a police officer. And I'm very proud of him. Well, I mean, I am proud of him. All right, so I'm just going to get real here. I love you, Garrett. I'm very proud of my son. I'm very proud that he wants to serve his country, both in the military as well as a police officer. It's just, I'm worried. I'm sure that's true of every mother whose son, serves, daughter or son. It's very difficult. And what makes it so much more difficult is the time we're in, right? Where there's not a whole lot of love, though, for the police. And, how many wars are we in right now? And please don't think that I don't, again, support our military. I absolutely appreciate the sacrifice they make to serving us, to serving this country, to protecting us, because that's what they're doing. They're putting their lives on the line for us. So absolutely, I hold them in the highest regard. And whether that is our military, our police, our firefighters, any of our first responders, they're doing it for us. And of course, they deserve all the appreciation and for their sacrifice. And it's my son, and this is just not a good time. I'm like, Garrett, baby, at any other time, I told him, of course, baby, I support you. And if this is what you're being called to do, then I'm going to love you and support you no matter what. I am on your side. And could you wait till after these 4 years are over? Could you try it under a different administration? I was like, because he joined in 2020. Yeah. So, there's a lot of mixed emotions I have. Super, super duper proud. And of course, concern, which is normal. And then I got the whole concern on top of that concern because, the whole freaking world is going to pot right now. But all that being said, I know God's got him. So we're good. We're good. Children got to do what they got to do. They got to walk their journey. All we can do is pray. And when they seek it for guidance, we give it to them. Not unsolicited. They get to an age when you no longer can just tell them what you feel all the time. Sometimes, you need to wait until they're ready to ask. So this weekend, my son asked. So I was kind of just going over some things that were happening in our lives, and I was talking to him about what I was hearing God tell me. And he's like, "What, Mom, stop. What do you mean I think I told him that, God was speaking to me." He said, "What do you mean God speaks to you? I don't get that. Explain that to me. I don't understand." And I said, it's different. It's different for everyone, Garrett. I said, for me, it's a feeling. I think I shared before that starting this podcast, I felt like God was poking his finger into my shoulder, like just pestering me. And I call that the divine nag. That's the divine nag. It's the nagging that won't give you any peace until you say, "All right, fine, let's go, let's do it." Fine. Stop. Stop nagging. Yeah, okay. That is the divine nag. And that's, for me, I feel it in my body. It's just this nagging feeling in my body that I need to do something. I need to do this. I need to go talk to this person. And I find out that they have cancer or something else. And that's happened quite a bit. Not always cancer, but, that someone needed someone to talk to. And God had told me, again, in this way, it's in my body, a feeling, hey, you need to go talk to that person. It's just a drawing to this person. And I got to go talk to him. And God's going, yeah, you need to go talk to him. Okay. So then I go and I realize, oh, that's why. Anyway, so I was explaining this to my son. I said, now, there have been times when I've literally heard his voice. Now, people are going to argue, and that's not really God. And that's fine. But to me, it was because, honey, it saved my life. Okay? So, and it was a voice I didn't recognize. And it's only happened a couple of times in my life. And it's just one word. It's either yes. It happened just like maybe, I can't remember, 2 or 3 times in my life that I heard a voice. And it was yes, and it was run. And so the time that it was run, I was 8 years old, and I shared this story with my son, because I'm starting to let him also, he's an adult now, to learn about his mom, and his mom's childhood and stuff. So I was 8 years old. We had just moved from Colorado, and we lived in the suburbs of Colorado, and we ended up moving into the inner city of Ohio. But we didn't change our behavior at all, which we learned very quickly that we needed to. So I was walking to school, because I typically walked to school when I was in Colorado. So I walked to school in Ohio, and there was some guy, as I was walking to school, and a man running behind me. And I did, I was a kid, I don't know. I kept walking. So, and he finally caught up with me. And he was behind me, and I was starting to get scared. I remember being scared. And he started touching me in places. And I started walking faster. And then, he stopped me, and I just froze. And he said, hey, why don't you come back with me to the, back here, And I was just frozen. And he came to grab me, and I heard in my right ear, I heard the word run. And man, I took off like a shot, man. I was gone, choo! I was out of there. And I ran all the way to school. Oh, I'm telling you, and then the office called the authorities, and, anyway, yeah. So that was that time. And so in those cases, you may say it's not God. Maybe it was I don't know. Maybe it was an angel, God's messenger. But it was a voice I did not recognize. And it saved my life. And the other couple times when I heard a strong yes, it was something that turned out really, really, really good. So, yeah, I'm going to say that was God. But most of the time, I feel it in my body. So I was explaining this to my son. I said, but some people, they hear it like an audible, a voice. Some people might see things. Maybe it's a word. They might see a word, or they might, have a vision. I mean, this may sound crazy to some people, but I don't think it is. So there are different ways that we experience knowing, the higher wisdom, the higher knowing that I believe comes from God. And so I was explaining this to him, and he said, Mom, I've been praying, because he's trying to get some answers to some things, and he says, and I just can't seem to get any answer, and I've been praying for it. And I said, well, Gary, I said, let me say this to you. I'm not saying I hear from God all the time. I don't. And a lot of times I don't hear from him on the things I really want to hear from him on. I mean, I'd like some answers here, God. And he's like, radio silence. It's like, well, hello, knock, knock, knock. You asked me to knock. I'm knocking. Okay? But I told him, I said, but baby, that's where faith comes in. And so when I don't hear from God, and if there's a decision I need to make, or if there's a path that I'm thinking about going down, or whatever it is, and I'm sorry, I'm driving today because I have an early morning class, so I can't walk. So, you're on the road with me today. So I said, I pray that I say, Lord, I'm going to give it to you. I'm going to give it to you because I don't know where you want me to do here. I'm not getting a yay or nay here. So I am going to give it to you that you are going to lead me and guide my steps, because that's what you say you do. And you will close any door I am not supposed to walk into and open the doors to the ones that I do. And I said, Garrett, that's where faith comes in. That's where we just have to go step forward in faith and believe that God will direct you. And understanding that he may have you take a step in a direction, right, that then just takes you into another direction. It's like, I got to go down this road for 2 blocks before I take a right to get on the street I really want to be on. And so God will guide your steps, but you just have to just have faith. And I told him, I said, something else that really, this is a lesson that I learned. And my son is a lot like me. So I talk about the lessons that I've learned, because he and I are so much alike that I know he'll get it, because a lot of the lessons I've learned, he's now learning, right? So I said, Gare, my whole life, I always try to force things to happen. Always. And part of it was probably that I had to always be in control. I'm sharing this with you now. I didn't share this with my son. It wasn't the right time. But I said, well, let me tell you first. So telling you, my driving buddy right now, I'm telling you, I had so many control issues because as a child, I had no control. Meaning, I know children don't have control anyway, but meaning I didn't have any control over the abuse, or I didn't have any control over the neglect, or these things that I just didn't have control over, or even whether there was food to eat or not. And so when I grew up, I became super controlling, right? And I had to control every aspect of my life. The food I ate, and that my refrigerator was full all the time, even if that meant food rotted in the refrigerator. Man, we were not going to be without food, because that's when you grew up not having any food, and you want that refrigerator stocked. So anyway, but control was a huge issue for me. And so going back to explaining to my son, I said, but I controlled things almost to my grave, Gare. And I would just force it. And I'm like, and especially if it's something I really, really wanted. Like it was like, oh my God, I gotta have this. I want this. And every part of my being felt like I wanted this thing, right? And so I would do everything I could to force it to happen. And, I guess I got to a point where I was like, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm just not going to do that, because I'm so busy, or was so busy, forcing something to happen. It cost me my health, or it cost me money. It cost me my time, or it cost me my standards. It never cost me my integrity. That I would never go that far. But the money I've lost, and the time I've lost, and, my standards, just lowering them or compromising my standards for what? Because I had to have this thing, and I was going to make it happen no matter what. And I thought, that's crazy. Why would I want to do that? And a lot of the times, well, actually, all the times that I had to force something, it never came out well. There are just some dreams that I'm very, very happy never came true. I'm like, Lord, thank you that dream never came true. Oh, thank you. There are just some dreams we have that, man, we're looking back, we're like, oh, I am so thankful. That one, that one would have been a nightmare. So thank you that it didn't come true. But when I stopped forcing things to happen, and so I had made the decision that, after all the craziness that happened, 4 years ago, 4 years ago, I guess at this point, 2020, I was like, I'm not going to force things anymore. I will do the appropriate, the necessary steps that are appropriate to do for what I want. Okay? But once it starts costing me too much time, or too much money, or too much stress, or too much aggravation, or I lower my standards and start compromising on what I want or what it is, when that starts to happen, then I go, it's time for me to back up. It's time for me to step away from it. Because at that point, I know, I'm forcing this thing, and it's not going to turn out well. And I'm not saying you don't work. We have to do the work, right? I mean, I'm not saying that. I'm not saying, just throw your hands up in the air and sit on your butt. You go, oh, Lord's got this. I'll leave it all up to God. You do it, Lord. No. God calls us to do our part. And at the same time, when we tune into ourselves, we know when it's just gone too far. We know when we're forcing it to happen. And when we get to that point, and this is what I told my son, back off of it. Let it be. Give it to God. And I know that's not easy, because we're like, but I really, really want this, or okay, I get it. Do what's necessary and then give it to God. Because when we force things, boy, I'll tell you, not only does a lot of those quote unquote dreams that we fought for, and I'm not saying we didn't work for it, but if we got to fight for it, and it destroys our health, and it destroys our peace of mind, and it destroys relationships, I said, yeah, that's a nightmare. And not only are you potentially, most likely, I'm not going to say 100% guaranteed, but 99% guaranteed of creating for yourself a nightmare of what you thought was going to be a dream. But now, I think God goes, this is what I think. I have no proof of this, but just my opinion. When that happens, because I have the experience of it, so I'm just going to say, from my experience, and from experiences from people that I know, when we get to a point that we're forcing so hard, I feel that God just kind of throws up his hands and says, you really want this? You think you really want this? Okay, you can have it. Let's see what you do with that. Let's see how good that goes, right? And so I think he does that. I mean, that's a whole freedom of choice thing, because we're so intent on doing it our way and making it happen. So we not only could be destroying ourselves in the process of, quote unquote, chasing our dream, we're also possibly chasing a nightmare in disguise. And what's really awfully sad, and is that not only are we, getting a nightmare, what's turning into a nightmare, what we've actually done is close the doors, those doors of opportunity, to the real dream that's waiting for us. Because we filled our lives so much with so much forcing and making it happen, and I'm going to do this, by God. And I'm not saying we don't work for things. I'm not saying we don't strive for things. I'm saying the difference between what's appropriate and what is throwing you completely off track. When you learn how to listen to your inner wisdom, that inner knowing from that higher self, that higher place inside of us, when we tune into that, we know, no, this isn't right. Yeah. And so at that point we go, okay, are we going to continue to force this, or are we going to give it to God? Like, que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. And what I told my son is, at that point, I would say it's time to let go. And just believe that if it is meant to be, it will be. And if it's not, be glad you didn't force it, because you could have created for yourself a complete nightmare. I mean, come on. I mean, how many relationships are you glad didn't work out? Right? How many jobs and interviews are you glad you didn't get? I mean, I look back on my life and so many things I thought I wanted, relationships, jobs, careers, whatever, things in my life. And I go, oh, yeah, that would not have been good. And I'm just like, wow, how thankful I am. I cringe going, oh, God, I was so close to that. Oh, no, we can look back in our lives and see that. Okay, I will speak for myself. I can look back on my life and see it. So I just said to my son, look, when I decided to give up the control, and again, being a control freak, that's hard for me. Well, it used to be. I'm better at it now, All things take practice. But when I gave up control, and I just focused on my faith that all will turn out exactly as it's supposed to, And I trust, did I do the work was necessary? Yes, I did. I do my little check mark. Okay. Then I've paid those dues, right? Now, let it go. And trust. And that's hard, I know. And I'll tell you what, having faith and believing that it's going to work out the way it's supposed to work out, well, not only has that happened for us, for me and for my husband, we decided this on together, we had some decisions to make that we would have to be forced to really make some really, compromises. I mean, not personal compromises to our character, but really financial compromises. And we're like, really? No, forget it. We're not doing it. If it doesn't happen, it doesn't happen. I'm not gonna work that hard for it. I'm not gonna sacrifice that much. And it worked out beautifully. And not only did we get what we wanted, we got it exactly what we wanted it for financially. It's like, holy cow, how'd that happen? Well, because we let go. And we trusted in that it was going to happen, or it wasn't. And it did, and we got it. But we would have been okay because we knew, hey, if this doesn't work out, something better is down the road. And that's it. So I shared that with my son. And he said, yeah, Mom, I've been used to forcing things too. And I was thinking to myself, yeah, Gare, I know. That's why I shared that with you. But I said, yeah, baby, I know. I said, try this. Just give it a go. Experiment. If you have to take a step forward on the path, take it forward. But just pray to God, hey, guide me, please. Don't let me take one step without you. Yeah. And that was our conversation about what do you do when the answers just won't come. All right. I don't know. It helped him. Hopefully, maybe it helped you too. Maybe. Anyway, if it did, let me know. Let me know. Get on. I think we are on Spotify now. Yay! We made it. We got up. So feel free to contact me there, or you can contact me at my website. I'm on all the social media, so feel free to just reach out. Love to hear from you. All right. Talk to you soon. Bye-bye.